Admiral Kim Dae stood in the observation deck of Harmony Point Station, watching the stars beyond the massive viewport. The station floated in neutral space between the major galactic powers, a symbol of peace and cooperation that had lasted for nearly 4 decades. Today was supposed to be another routine council session. Nothing more than trade agreements and territorial disputes. Kim Dae had served Earth for 23 years, rising through the ranks of the Earth Defense Force before being appointed as senior military representative to the Galactic Council. He had seen humanity grow from a small, isolated species to valued partners in the galactic community. Earth had 3 close allies among the stars, species that had welcomed humanity with open arms and genuine friendship. The Kaleri were gentle traders, tall and graceful with silver skin that shimmered in starlight. They had taught humans the art of interstellar commerce and had become Earth's primary trading partners. The Morvani were brilliant scientists with 4 arms and curious minds that never stopped asking questions. They had shared their research freely with humanity, advancing Earth's technology by centuries. The Vexian were warrior poets, strong and honorable beings who had pledged their protection to Earth when humanity was still new to the galaxy. Dr. Park Hannah walked up beside Kim Dae, her face troubled as she held a datapad. She was Earth's chief xenobiologist and had spent her entire career studying alien cultures. Park Hannah understood the council races better than anyone else on Earth. "Admiral, something is wrong," she said quietly. The Gordani delegation arrived 2 hours early, and they brought 3 times more ships than usual. The Vex Syndicate has been jamming communications with our allies since this morning. The Ethereal Collective hasn't spoken to anyone at all. Kim Dae frowned. The 3 major council powers rarely worked together. The Gordani Empire was militaristic and aggressive, believing that strength was the only truth in the universe. The Vex Syndicate was cold and calculating, viewing everything through the lens of profit and efficiency. The Ethereal Collective was ancient and mysterious, claiming to be the oldest civilization in the galaxy. "Where are Ambassador Choi Yuna and Captain Lee Jun?" Kim Dae asked. "Ambassador Choi is in the main council chamber preparing for the session. Captain Lee is aboard the Indomitable maintaining standard orbit around the station," Park Hannah replied. Kim Dae nodded. Captain Lee Jun commanded Earth's most advanced warship, a vessel that represented the best of human engineering combined with technology gifted by their allies. Ambassador Choi Yuna was Earth's voice in the council, a brilliant diplomat who had negotiated dozens of peaceful agreements. The warning klaxons began sounding throughout Harmony Point. Kim Dae and Park Hannah rushed to the nearest communication terminal. The screen flickered to life, showing the face of a panicked Kaleri communications officer. "Emergency transmission from Kaleri Prime," the officer gasped. "We are under attack. Massive fleet approaching our homeworld. They are not responding to our communications. Please, we need immediate assistance." The transmission cut to static. Kim Dae felt ice in his veins as he activated his communicator. "Captain Lee, this is Admiral Kim. Emergency status. Get me a tactical report on all friendly systems immediately." Lee Chun's voice crackled through the device. "Admiral, I'm reading. Massive energy signatures in 3 different star systems. The Kaleri homeworld, the primary Morvani research colony, and the main Vexian fleet base? Sir, these look like coordinated attacks." Kim Dae ran toward the council chamber with Park Hannah close behind. The corridors of Harmony Point were filled with confused delegates from dozens of species, all trying to understand what was happening. As they reached the chamber doors, they could hear shouting from inside. The massive chamber was in chaos. Ambassador Choi Yuna stood at the Earth delegation table, her face pale but determined. The 3 major council powers sat in their elevated positions, looking down at the smaller species with cold satisfaction. The Gordani War Marshal, a massive being covered in natural armor, spoke in a voice like grinding metal. "The contamination has spread too far. The lesser species have been infected with human ideas of individual freedom and equality. This disease threatens the natural order of the galaxy." The Vex Prime Calculator, a being of living crystal and light, added in its emotionless tone, Our analysis indicates a 97.3% probability that continued exposure to human influence will result in systematic rebellion among servitor species. This outcome is unacceptable. The ethereal high wisdom, a floating form of pure energy, whispered in a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. We have guided this galaxy for 10 million years. We will not allow primitive concepts to destroy the stability we have created. Kim Dae burst through the chamber doors just as new reports flooded the communication channels. The Kalari homeworld was burning. Gordani fleets had surrounded the planet and were systematically destroying every city, every spaceport, every sign of civilization. The weapons they used turned the very atmosphere into fire. The Morvani research colonies were being eliminated by Vex battle platforms. The cold efficiency of the attack was terrifying. No warnings, no demands for surrender, simply total elimination of every living Morvani in the galaxy. The Vexian warrior fleets had been ambushed by ethereal forces using weapons that existed partially outside normal space. The proud warriors fought bravely, but they had been caught completely unprepared. Their honor-bound nature had made them trust the Council completely. Ambassador Choi Yuna's voice cut through the chaos. This is genocide. You are murdering entire civilizations. The war marshal laughed, a sound like breaking stone. We are performing necessary surgery. The cancer of human influence must be removed before it spreads further. The prime calculators. Light pulsed coldly. Earth's allies have been terminated. Earth itself now faces a choice. Submit to re-education and abandon your primitive concepts of individual rights, or join your friends in extinction. Kim Dae watched the tactical displays showing the massacre across 3 star systems. Billions of innocent beings were dying simply because they had befriended humanity and embraced human ideals of freedom and equality. The high wisdom floated closer to the Earth delegation. You have 1 standard day to decide. Return to your system and prepare for re-education, or face the consequences of your contamination. Ambassador Choi Yuna stood straight and proud despite the threats surrounding her. We will need time to consult with our government. Time you have? The war marshal growled. But understand this clearly. The age of your naive democracy and individual freedom is over. The galaxy belongs to those strong enough to rule it. Kim Dae felt something fundamental break inside his chest as he watched the final transmissions from their allies. The last Kalari ship exploded in the darkness of space. The final Morvani research station went silent forever. The greatest Vexian warrior poet sent one last message before his ship was destroyed. Tell Earth we died free, the Vexian warrior said. Tell them our friendship was worth everything. The transmission ended in static and death. In 6 hours, 3 entire civilizations had been wiped from existence simply because they had chosen to stand beside humanity. Kim Dae looked at Park Hannah and saw tears streaming down her face. Ambassador Choi Yuna stood frozen at the delegation table, her hands clenched into fists. The chamber fell silent except for the quiet satisfaction of the 3 Council powers. The galaxy had just learned that friendship with humanity was a death sentence. Earth now faced the same choice their allies had never been given: submit or die. But as Kim Dae stared at the tactical displays showing the burning ruins of 3 homeworlds, he knew that the Council had made a terrible mistake. They had shown humanity exactly what they were capable of doing to the innocent. And humanity was about to show them what they were capable of doing in return. The Earth Defense Council meeting room was silent except for the quiet hum of quantum computers, processing endless streams of data. General Baektae sat at the head of the polished metal table, his weathered face showing no emotion as he reviewed the reports from Harmony Point. Around him sat the most powerful people in human space, each one struggling to comprehend the magnitude of what had happened. Ambassador Choi Yuna had returned to Earth aboard the fastest ship in the fleet. Her diplomatic immunity the only thing that had kept her alive during the journey home. She sat across from General Baektae, her usually perfect composure cracked by exhaustion and grief. They gave us 24 hours to decide, she said quietly. submit to their re-education programs, or face total extinction. They made it very clear that our allies died because they learned to think like humans. Dr. Shinmira leaned forward in her chair. She was the director of Earth's Advanced Weapons Division, a position that had been largely ceremonial for the past 30 years of peace. Her department had spent decades researching theoretical weapons that nobody ever expected to use. How many survivors? She asked. Admiral Kim Dae answered from his position near the wall display showing the 3 destroyed star systems. From preliminary scans, we estimate maybe 300 individuals total across all 3 species. Most are civilians who were off-world during the attacks. 3 survivors made it to our emergency rendezvous point. Commander Oh Seok, leader of Earth's Special Operations Division, spoke up. What about our human colonies in council space? 47 colony worlds with approximately 12 million human citizens, Ambassador Choi Yuna replied. The council has offered to let them live if Earth submits to re-education. If we refuse, they become targets. General Baek-tae finally looked up from his reports. He had served Earth for 41 years, fighting in the border wars before humanity joined the Galactic Council. He had hoped never to see combat again, but the galaxy had other plans. Ambassador Choi, you will return to Council space tomorrow. You will formally withdraw Earth from the Galactic Council and inform them that we accept their demands. Earth will recall all human colonies to the Sol system and prepare for their re-education programs. The room erupted in shocked voices. Dr. Shinmira stood up so fast her chair fell backward. General, you cannot be serious. After what they did to the Kaleri, the Morvani, the Vexians, you want to surrender? General Baek-tae held up his hand. For silence. I want everyone in this room to understand something very clearly. As of 6 hours ago, Earth is at war with the 3 most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. We are outnumbered 10,000 to 1. They have weapons that can burn planets and fleets that span entire star systems. He stood up and activated the holographic display in the center of the table. But they made a critical mistake. They showed us their true nature before they attacked us. For 37 years, we have been preparing for this exact scenario. Commander Oh Seok smiled grimly. Project Prometheus. Exactly, General Baek-tae confirmed. Dr. Shin, please brief the ambassador on our capabilities. Dr. Shinmira walked to the display and began manipulating the controls. The hologram shifted to show detailed schematics of weapons and ships that looked nothing like standard human technology. For the past 20 years, Earth has been secretly developing what we call adaptive warfare systems. Every piece of technology our allies shared with us, every cultural exchange, every joint research project was also an intelligence gathering operation. We have been studying the council races, learning their weaknesses, understanding their blind spots. Ambassador Choi Yuna stared at the display in amazement. You have been planning to fight our allies? We have been planning to fight anyone who might threaten Earth, General Baek-tae corrected. The Kaleri taught us about quantum phase manipulation. The Morvani shared their research into dimensional engineering. The Vexians showed us their warrior philosophy and combat techniques. We learned from all of them, and we never stopped preparing for the worst. The display showed ships that looked like twisted versions of human designs, incorporating technology from all 3 extinct species. Dr. Shinmira pointed to the largest vessel. This is the Revenge-class battleship. It uses Kaleri phase technology to partially exist outside normal space, making it nearly impossible to target. Morvani dimensional engineering allows it to appear anywhere in a star system without warning. Vexian combat philosophy guides its tactical systems. Commander Oh Seok added, We currently have 47 of these ships under construction in hidden facilities throughout the Sol system. The Council thinks we have 12 outdated cruisers and maybe 30 destroyers. But how do we protect our colonies? Ambassador Choi Yuna asked. General Baek-tae smiled for the first time since the meeting began. We do not protect them, we evacuate them. But every evacuation ship that leaves Council space will actually be a weapons platform in disguise. The Council will think they are watching Earth retreat in fear. Actually, they will be watching us deploy our fleet across the galaxy. Engineer Yubin spoke up from her position at the end of the table. She had been quiet throughout the meeting, but her department had been working around the clock since the news arrived from Harmony Point. General, the first evacuation ships are ready to launch. The Sanctuary-class transports can each carry 10,000 civilians, but they are also equipped with enough firepower to destroy a Council battle station. Admiral Kim Dae turned from the wall display. What about the survivors from our allies? Already. Aboard the first transport, Commander Oseok replied. Kaleri merchant Veltara, Morvani scientist Quinnash, and Daxian warrior Kethmore. They have agreed to help us coordinate our response. General Beekte sat back down and looked at each person in the room. Ladies and gentlemen, we are about to begin the most dangerous operation in human history. The Council believes they have taught us our place in the galaxy. They think we will submit like frightened children and abandon everything we believe in. He activated another holographic display showing the entire galaxy with human colonies marked in blue and Council territories marked in red. They are wrong. We are going to teach them what happens when you make humanity choose between freedom and safety. Ambassador Choi, when you return to Council space, you will appear to be a broken diplomat representing a defeated species. Actually, you will be coordinating the largest military deception in galactic history. Dr. Shin Myra pulled up tactical projections showing probable Council fleet movements and defensive positions. Our analysis indicates the Council will spend the next 6 months consolidating their victory and preparing re-education facilities. They believe Earth is helpless and will not resist. 6 months, General Beekte repeated. 6 months to position our forces, gather intelligence, and prepare our response. The Council massacred our friends because they learned to value freedom over security. They are about to learn what humans value more than life itself. Commander Oseok stood up and saluted. General, Special Operations requests permission to begin Phase 1 infiltration. Granted, begin immediately. Ambassador Choi Yuna gathered her materials and prepared to leave. General, when I return to Council space and tell them Earth submits, they will believe they have won the war before it started. General Beekte looked out the window at the ships already beginning to move in Earth's orbital shipyards. Construction crews worked around the clock-building vessels that looked like civilian transports but carried the most advanced weapons humanity had ever created. Let them believe it, Ambassador. Let them think we are cowering in fear. Let them believe that killing our allies has taught us to know our place. He turned back to the room full of Earth's military leadership. Because when we finally show them who we really are, it will be far too late for them to stop what is coming. The meeting ended in silence, but everyone in the room understood that Earth's age of peaceful cooperation was over. The Council had wanted to teach humanity a lesson about power. They were about to receive an education they would never forget. Colonel Park Seung crouched in the maintenance tunnel beneath the Gordani re-education facility on Kepler 442b, listening to the sounds of suffering echoing through the metal walls above him. He had been hiding in Council territory for 3 months, watching and waiting as Earth's colonies were systematically processed through the Council's brutal program designed to break human spirit. The facility held 8,000 human civilians, mostly families from the agricultural colony that had once thrived on this world. The Gordani had renamed it Processing Station Theta 7, and they took pride in their efficiency at eliminating what they called individualistic contamination from human minds. Park Seung activated his encrypted communicator and whispered into the device. Command, this is Ghost Leader. I have visual confirmation of the target facility. Beginning evidence collection. Captain Namri's voice crackled through the secure channel from her position aboard the stealth vessel Ghost of Terra, hidden in the asteroid field at the edge of the system. Copy that, Ghost Leader. Intelligence reports the Vex have similar facilities operational on 12 worlds. The Ethereal Collective is running psychological conditioning programs on another 8. Park Seung carefully moved through the tunnel system, using advanced sensors to map the facility and record everything he observed. What he saw through the scanner feeds made his blood turn to ice. The Council was not simply re-educating humans. They were systematically destroying everything that made them human. Children as young as 6 years old were being forced to denounce their parents for teaching them about individual rights. Families were separated and turned against each other through psychological manipulation and torture. Adults who refused to abandon their beliefs about freedom and equality were subjected to neural conditioning that left them as empty shells. The worst part was the execution chambers. The Council had discovered that some humans would rather die than abandon their principles, so they had created a special punishment for these cases. They would execute the person's family members one by one until the individual agreed to submit, or until there was no one left to save. Park Seung recorded everything, his hands shaking with rage as he documented the systematic destruction of human dignity. These people had trusted Earth to protect them. They had believed that their government would find a way to bring them home safely. His communicator buzzed with an urgent message from Earth. Dr. Park Hannah's voice came through the encrypted channel, tight with barely controlled emotion. All units, priority transmission. We have received footage from the VEX facility on New Geneva. They are executing children who refuse to denounce their parents' beliefs about individual freedom. Repeat, they are murdering human children for refusing to abandon human values. Park Seung closed his eyes and felt something fundamental break inside his chest. He had served Earth for 15 years, conducting covert operations in the name of peace and diplomacy. He had always believed that there was a line that civilized beings would not cross. The Council had not just crossed that line. They had obliterated it. Command, this is Ghost Leader, he whispered into his communicator, requesting permission to move to Phase 2 operations. General Bigte's voice came through the channel, cold as vacuum. Permission granted, Colonel. All units are authorized to begin Phase 2, no restrictions, no mercy. On Earth, Admiral Kim Dae stood in the war room watching the live feeds from 23 infiltration teams positioned throughout Council space. Each team had been documenting the systematic brutality being inflicted on human colonies. The evidence was overwhelming and horrifying. Dr. Park Hannah sat at the intelligence station, tears streaming down her face as she watched the footage from the children's execution chamber on New Geneva. The young victims had sung Earth's anthem as they faced death, refusing to betray their families even with guns pointed at their heads. They are not re-educating our people, she said quietly. They are committing genocide with extra steps. Ambassador Choi Yuna stood beside the main display, her diplomatic composure finally shattered completely. She had spent 4 months pretending to cooperate with the Council while secretly coordinating Earth's preparations. She had smiled and nodded while they described their plans to eliminate human individuality forever. Admiral, she said, her voice steady despite her tears, I formally request permission to end all diplomatic contact with the Galactic Council. Diplomacy is officially dead. Admiral Kim Dae looked around the room at Earth's military leadership. Engineer Yu Bin stood beside her technical displays showing the positions of 47 disguised warships, now scattered throughout Council space. Commander Oh Seok monitored the infiltration teams preparing to begin the real war. Dr. Shin Myra supervised the final weapons preparations from her station. Ladies and gentlemen, Admiral Kim Dae announced, the Council wanted to teach us about power. They wanted to show us what happens to species that value freedom over submission. They have succeeded in teaching us a lesson. He activated the main tactical display showing the entire galaxy. Human positions were marked in blue, Council territories in red. But now there were new markers appearing throughout Council space, small green dots representing Earth's hidden assets. They taught us that there are beings in this universe so evil that diplomacy becomes collaboration. They taught us that some threats to human dignity can only be answered with overwhelming force. They taught us that when peaceful people are pushed beyond their breaking point, the results are terrible to behold. Colonel Park Sung's voice came through the communication system from his position beneath the re-education facility. Command, I have placed charges throughout the facility's primary support structure. On your order, I can bring down the entire complex. Negative, Colonel, Admiral Kim Dae replied. Your mission is to document and infiltrate, not to rescue. We cannot save these people with small operations. Then what is the plan, sir? Admiral Kim Dae looked at the tactical display showing Council fleet positions, supply lines, communication networks, and command structures. Earth's intelligence operations had spent 4 months mapping every aspect of Council civilization. We are going to save them all, Colonel. Every human in Council space. Every survivor from our murdered allies. We are going to end this war not by winning battles, but by making the Council incapable of continuing to fight. Dr. Shinmyra activated her weapons control station. Admiral, all Revenge-class battleships report ready for combat operations. Ghost Fleet is in position throughout Council space. Infiltration teams have compromised primary communication networks on 18 worlds. Engineer Yubin added her. Report. Sir, our disguised evacuation ships have successfully penetrated Council defenses and are positioned near every major military installation. They still believe we are cowering in the Sol system. Commander Osog smiled grimly as he reviewed the infiltration reports. Special operations teams have identified and located every Council official directly responsible for the re-education programs. We have assassination solutions prepared for over 300 high-value targets. Captain Namri's voice came through from her stealth ship. Admiral, the Ghost of Terra is in position above the primary Gordani command station. We can eliminate their entire military leadership within minutes of receiving authorization. Admiral Kim Dae looked one final time at the footage from the re-education facilities. Human children dying for their beliefs. Families destroyed for valuing freedom. Entire colonies being systematically broken down into mindless servants. All units, this is Admiral Kim Dae. You are authorized to begin combat operations. Phase 3 is now active. Target priority is Council command and control systems. Rules of engagement are as follows. No quarter for anyone directly involved in the genocide of our allies or the brutalization of human civilians. He paused and looked at Ambassador Choi Yuna, who nodded grimly. The Council wanted to teach us that diplomacy is weakness. They wanted to show us that mercy is failure. They demonstrated that the only language they understand is violence. Well, violence is what they will receive. Begin the attack. Throughout Council space, 47 ships that looked like helpless refugee transports suddenly revealed their true nature. The war that would remake the galaxy had finally begun. The Gordani War Marshal Thek Morin stood in the command center of Fortress Prime, the Empire's most heavily defended military installation, watching in confusion as his tactical displays showed impossible readings. 3 of his outer defense platforms had simply vanished from sensors without any warning or distress signals. Status report, he demanded from his communications officer. Sir, we lost contact with Defense Platform 7 Alpha approximately 4 minutes ago. No enemy contacts detected, no weapons fire recorded. The platform simply stopped transmitting. Thek Morin's natural armor plates shifted with agitation. The Gordani had ruled through superior firepower for 8,000 years. Their military doctrine was simple: identify the enemy, engage with overwhelming force, achieve total victory. But you could not fight an enemy you could not see, expand sensor sweeps to maximum range. Deploy scout ships to investigate the missing platforms. Before the communications officer could respond, 2 more defense platforms disappeared from the tactical display. Then 4 more. Within minutes, the outer defensive ring around Fortress Prime was simply gone on the bridge of the disguised battleship. New Kaleri, Captain Li Jun, monitored the systematic destruction of Gordani defenses with cold satisfaction. His ship appeared on enemy sensors as a damaged refugee transport, but it carried weapons that combined the best of human engineering with technology inherited from their murdered allies. Tactical report on phase technology performance, Li. June ordered. Lieutenant Min-ho looked up from his station with barely contained excitement. Sir, the Kaleri phase drives are working perfectly. We can materialize inside enemy shields, fire our weapons, and phase back out before their targeting systems can lock onto us. They literally cannot hit what they cannot predict. Weapon status. All. Morven enhanced plasma batteries are charged and ready. Engineering reports the dimensional torpedoes are armed and tracking multiple targets. Li Jun nodded grimly. The Kaleri had taught humans about quantum phase manipulation as a tool for peaceful exploration. The Morvani had shared their dimensional engineering for scientific research. The Vexian had demonstrated their warrior philosophy as cultural exchange. The Council had murdered these generous species for the crime of friendship with humanity. Now their gifts would become instruments of vengeance. Target the primary command center, use maximum firepower. I want Fortress Prime to understand that this is not a terrorist attack. This is war. The new Kaleri phased into normal space directly. Above Fortress Prime, appearing inside the installation's shields like a ghost materializing from nothing. The Gordani defenders had less than 3 seconds to register the impossible before 24. Dimensional torpedoes tore through their command structure. War Marshal Vek Moron watched his screens explode in static as his fortress died around him. The massive installation, which had withstood attacks from entire fleets, was being systematically dismantled by weapons he did not understand using tactics. He could not counter his final transmission before the command center was destroyed. Reach the Gordani High Command. We are under attack by unknown forces using impossible technology. They appear from nowhere, strike without warning, and vanish before we can respond. This is not the weak Earth species we were expecting. Similar scenes played out across Gordani space as 47 disguised human warships began revealing their true capabilities. But the attacks were not random acts of violence. Admiral Kim Dae had spent months planning what he called total strategic interdiction. On Earth, Dr. Shinmira coordinated the assault from the Advanced Weapons Division Command Center. Holographic displays showed the systematic destruction of Council military infrastructure across 3 different galactic territories. Admiral, Phase 1 targets are being eliminated ahead of schedule, she reported. Council forces are attempting to respond, but they cannot adapt to our technology fast enough. Admiral Kim Dae studied the tactical information flowing in from across the galaxy. Human forces were not simply attacking military targets. They were methodically dismantling the infrastructure that supported Council civilization. What is the status of their supply networks? Engineer Yuben answered from her logistics station. Sir, we have identified and targeted 217. Critical supply depots? Council military forces depend on centralized logistics networks that span dozens of star systems. We are cutting their supply lines systematically. Communication networks? Commander Oseok reported from his intelligence station. Special operations teams have compromised primary communication hubs on 34 worlds. Council forces are losing the ability to coordinate their responses. Trade routes? Blockaded or destroyed, Dr. Shinmira confirmed. We are not just attacking their military. We are making it impossible for their civilizations to function. In Vex Syndicate space, the cold calculating minds that had ruled through economic manipulation were discovering that their carefully planned society was more fragile than they had realized. The Prime Calculator received reports from across Syndicate. Territories showing the systematic collapse of their trade networks. Analysis indicates human forces are targeting critical infrastructure nodes with precision that suggests complete understanding of our societal dependencies, reported Subcalculator. Kex 9. Probability of successful defense using current protocols? Less than 12% and declining rapidly. Human tactical adaptation exceeds our predictive capabilities. They are using weapons and tactics that do not exist in our databases. The Prime Calculator processed this information with growing alarm. The Vex Syndicate had survived for millennia by calculating the most efficient path to victory in any conflict. But their calculations required understanding their enemy's capabilities. Humanity was using technology that should not exist, tactics that made no logical sense, and strategies that seemed designed specifically to exploit syndicate weaknesses that no outside species should have known about. Probability that human intelligence operations have been monitoring syndicate activities for extended periods? Approaching 97%. Conclusion: Earth has been preparing for this conflict far longer than our initial assessments indicated. In the space around the ethereal collective's ancient homeworld, beings of pure energy who had guided galactic civilization for millions of years faced their first serious challenge in eons. The High Wisdom attempted to use their reality-shaping abilities to defend against human attacks, but they found their power somehow contained and redirected. Captain Namri commanded the stealth vessel, Ghost of Terra, as it materialized inside the collective's primary nexus. Her ship carried weapons designed by studying the Xian warrior philosophy combined with human tactical innovation. "The Ethereals are trying to phase shift our weapons into non-existence," reported her tactical officer. "But the Dexian honor code modifications are working. Our weapons retain coherent existence through sheer determination programming." "Impossible," Namri muttered, then smiled. "Fire everything." The High Wisdom felt pain for the first time in a million years as human weapons tore through defenses that had protected the collective since before most species had discovered fire. These were not the crude kinetic weapons of a primitive species. These were philosophical attacks that struck at the fundamental assumptions underlying ethereal existence. As the Nexus burned around them, the High Wisdom sent a desperate message to the other Council powers. The humans are not fighting the war we expected. They are not trying to defeat us. They are trying to unmake us. Back on Earth, Admiral Kimday received battle reports showing the systematic collapse of Council resistance across 3 major galactic territories. His strategy of total strategic interdiction was working perfectly. Dr. Park Hanna looked up from her analysis station with a troubled expression. "Admiral, I am detecting massive civilian casualties on Council worlds. Their entire societies are beginning to collapse." Admiral Kimday studied the casualty reports for a long moment. "Doctor, 4 months ago the Council murdered 3 entire species for the crime of friendship with humanity. They tortured and killed human children for refusing to abandon their beliefs. They showed us that they considered genocide an acceptable tool for maintaining power." He activated the main display showing the burning ruins of Kaleri Prime, Morvani research colonies, and Nexian fleet bases. "We are not committing genocide, Doctor. We are performing surgery. We are cutting out the cancer that infected this galaxy and replacing it with something better." The communication system activated with a priority message from Colonel Park Soong, still hidden beneath the re-education facility on Kepler 442b. "Admiral, the Gordani are evacuating the facility. They are abandoning their prisoners and retreating to their core worlds." "Understood, Colonel. Begin prisoner extraction operations." "Captain Lee, redirect the new Kaleri to support Colonel Park's mission." Admiral Kimday looked around the command center at Earth's military leadership. They had been fighting for 6 hours and had already achieved more than any human had dared hope. "Ladies and gentlemen, the Council is learning what happens when peaceful people are pushed beyond their breaking point. But this is only the beginning. Phase 4 will target their homeworlds directly. The war that would reshape the galaxy was just getting started." 3 months after the war began, the Gordani War Council gathered in their deepest bunker on their homeworld of Keth Prime. The massive chamber had been carved from solid rock 3 kilometers beneath the planet's surface, designed to survive the destruction of entire continents. Now it served as the final refuge for the leadership of an empire that was dying. War Marshal Dek Moran sat at the head of the council table, his once proud armor scarred and blackened from countless battles. Around him sat the surviving military commanders of the Gordani Empire, each one bearing the marks of humanity's relentless assault. "Status report," Dek Moran demanded, though he already knew the answer would bring no comfort. Commander Vexlock consulted his tactical display with shaking hands. "Sir, we have lost 78% of our military infrastructure. Human forces have destroyed 462 major installations, eliminated our supply networks, and captured or killed over half our officer corps. What about our defensive fleets? Gone, sir. The humans do not fight fleet battles. They simply appear inside our formations, destroy everything they can reach, and vanish before we can coordinate a response. Our ships cannot hit targets that exist partially outside normal space. Vekmoran struck the table with his armored fist. 8,000 years of Gordani dominance, and we are being defeated by a species that has barely learned to travel between stars. The chamber's communication system activated, showing the faces of the Vex Prime Calculator and the ethereal High Wisdom. Both looked as desperate as the Gordani leadership. The Prime Calculator spoke first, its crystalline voice crackling with interference. War Marshal, the Vex Syndicate proposes immediate peace negotiations with the Earth forces. Our analysis indicates continued resistance will result in total civilizational collapse within 6 weeks. The High Wisdom's energy form flickered weakly. The ethereal collective concurs. These humans are not fighting a conventional war. They are systematically dismantling the foundation of galactic order itself. Vekmoran considered this for a moment. The Gordani had never retreated from any battle, never shown weakness to any enemy. But they had never faced an enemy like humanity. What terms do we offer? Reparations for the murdered species, territorial concessions, return of all human prisoners, complete withdrawal from human space, the Prime Calculator listed mechanically. Acceptable losses to preserve our core territories. The High Wisdom agreed. The came. Morin activated his communications array and sent a priority transmission toward the Sol system. Human forces, this is War Marshal Vekmoran of the Gordani Empire. We request immediate ceasefire negotiations. We are prepared to offer significant concessions in exchange for an end to hostilities. The response came 12 hours later, broadcast across every communication frequency in the galaxy. Ambassador Choi Yuna's face appeared on screens from the Gordani homeworld to the furthest reaches of council space. Her diplomatic composure had been replaced by something far more dangerous. This was not the voice of someone seeking compromise. This was the voice of judgment itself. People of the galaxy, she began, her words carrying across billions of worlds. 4 months ago, the Galactic Council made a choice. They chose to respond to friendship with genocide. They chose to answer cooperation with brutality. They chose to meet peaceful coexistence with systematic extermination. The transmission showed footage from the re-education facilities, the execution chambers, the burning ruins of allied worlds. The Council taught us that diplomacy is weakness. They showed us that mercy is failure. They demonstrated that the only language they understand is violence. Very well, violence is what they will receive. In the Gordani bunker, Vekmoran felt ice in his veins as Ambassador Choi Yuna continued her broadcast. The Council believed they could terrorize us into submission by murdering our friends and torturing our families. They were wrong. They have awakened something in humanity that will not rest until justice is complete. The transmission cut to tactical displays showing human fleet movements throughout Council space. Massive formations were converging on all 3 Council homeworlds simultaneously. We do not seek your surrender. We do not desire your capitulation. We are coming to end your capacity to harm others permanently. You taught us that some beings cannot be reasoned with, only stopped. On Earth, Admiral Kim Dae stood in the main command center coordinating the largest military operation in human history. 3 separate battle fleets, each one larger than the entire Earth Defense Force from just 1 year ago, were approaching the Council homeworlds. General Beek Tay monitored the operation from his position at the Strategic Overview Station. Admiral, all fleets report ready for Phase 5 operations. The Gordani homeworld is surrounded, Vex Prime is blockaded. The ethereal Nexus world is isolated. Dr. Shinmyra called out from her weapons control station. Sir, we are detecting massive civilian populations on all 3 target worlds. Billions of non-combatants, Admiral Kim Dae nodded grimly. Doctor, we are not here to commit genocide. We are here to perform surgery. Commander O, what is the status of our intelligence? Operations? Commander Oseok smiled with cold satisfaction. Sir, special operations teams have identified and located every council official directly involved in the genocide of our allies and the brutalization of human civilians. We have precise targeting information for over 8,000 individuals. And the civilian populations? Completely separate from military and government targets. We can eliminate the leadership while leaving the general population untouched. Admiral Kim Dae activated the fleet-wide communication system. All units, this is Admiral Kim begin Phase 5 operations. Target priority is government and military leadership only. Rules of engagement remain in effect. No harm to civilian populations. Above Keth Prime, the human fleet materialized out of phase space like ghosts becoming solid. The Gordani defenders fired everything they had, but human ships phased through their attacks while returning devastating fire with surgical precision. Captain Li Jun commanded the assault on the primary government complex from the bridge of the New Kaleri. Tactical, target the War Council bunker. Use dimensional penetrators. I want clean elimination of military leadership with 0 civilian casualties. War Marshal Lekmorin felt the bunker shake as human weapons tore through 3 kilometers of solid rock, as if it were empty space. In his final moments, he understood that humanity had not simply defeated the Gordani Empire. They had rendered it obsolete. Similar scenes played out on Vex Prime and the ethereal homeworld. The beings who had ordered genocide faced the same swift, merciless justice they had inflicted on others. But humanity's vengeance was precise, surgical, focused only on those who had chosen evil. Within 72 hours, the war was over. The 3 council powers still existed, but their leadership had been systematically eliminated. Their military forces had been destroyed. Their capacity to harm others had been permanently removed. Admiral Kim Dae received the final battle reports. In Earth's command center, Colonel Park Seung had successfully liberated all human prisoners from re-education facilities. Captain Nam Ri had secured the surviving members of the extinct allied species. Engineer Yu Bin reported that Council military infrastructure had been completely dismantled. Ambassador Choi Yuna prepared for her final broadcast to the galaxy. People of the Council worlds, your governments chose to make genocide their policy. That policy has been permanently discontinued. Your new reality is simple. Those who choose peace will find Earth standing beside them. Those who choose violence will find Earth standing against them. She looked directly into the camera with eyes that had seen too much suffering and delivered too much justice. The Council taught us that power without restraint leads to evil. They were right. That is why Earth will never rule you. We will simply ensure that no one else does either. The age of galactic empires is over. The age of protected freedom has begun. The transmission ended, leaving the galaxy forever changed. Humanity had spoken in the only language the Council understood, and the message was clear: never again. 1 year after the end of the Council War, Admiral Kim Dae stood on the observation deck of Memorial Station, watching the construction crews putting the finishing touches on the massive structure. The station orbited the ruins of Kaleri Prime, the first world to fall to Council genocide. Where once a thriving civilization had flourished, now only twisted metal and glass remained as monuments to the cost of unchecked power. Memorial Station was not a military installation or a trading post. It was something entirely new in galactic history, a promise made solid. Every species in the galaxy could see it from their homeworlds, a reminder that some crimes would never be forgotten and never be repeated. Dr. Park Hannah joined him at the viewport, carrying a datapad with the latest reports from the former Council territories. She looked older than her years, worn down by everything she had witnessed during the war and its aftermath. The integration reports are in, she said quietly. The Gordani homeworld now has a functioning civilian government under joint human survivor oversight. The Vex Syndicate territories have been reorganized into independent trading cooperatives. The ethereal collective remnants have established a new council focused on knowledge preservation rather than galactic control. Kim Day nodded. The transformation of the former council powers had taken months of careful work. Earth had been very clear from the beginning. They were not conquerors seeking to rule. They were surgeons removing a cancer from galactic civilization. What about the Memorial Fleet? All 47 ships are operational, Park Hanna reported. Each one commanded by one of the surviving members of the extinct species and crewed by volunteers from across the galaxy. The Kalari merchant Veltara commands the Remembrance. The Morvani scientist Quinn Nash leads the Legacy. The Vexian warrior Kethmore captains the Honor Guard. Kim Day smiled sadly. The Memorial Fleet was perhaps humanity's most important contribution to the new galactic order. These were not human ships serving human interests. They were vessels dedicated to preserving the memory and knowledge of the murdered species, ensuring that their contributions to galactic civilization would never be lost. Commander Oseok approached them from across the observation deck. He had been overseeing the final stages of what Earth diplomatically called transitional justice operations. In simpler terms, he had been hunting down every individual who had participated in genocide and ensuring they faced appropriate consequences. Admiral, the accountability tribunals have completed their work. Every council official who participated in the genocide has been brought before judges composed of survivors from all affected species. The sentences have been carried out. Total numbers: 8,347 individuals faced execution for direct participation in genocide. 22,000 faced imprisonment for supporting roles. Approximately 2 million civilians have been relocated to assist in rebuilding the worlds they helped destroy. Dr. Park Hanna looked troubled. Commander, are we certain this is justice and not revenge? Commander Oseo considered the question seriously. Doctor, we gave them trials. We allowed them to present evidence in their defense. We applied the same standards of proof that Earth uses in our own courts. The only difference is that the penalty for genocide is death, and we actually enforced it. Through the viewport, they could see the first of the reconstruction ships approaching Kalari Prime. These vessels carried Kalari survivors, working alongside human engineers and volunteers from dozens of species. They were not trying to rebuild the old world. They were creating something new that honored what had been lost while embracing what could still be saved. Engineer Yubin's voice came over the station's communication system. Admiral, we are receiving the final reports from the Terran Compact ratification ceremonies. All member species have formally signed the agreement. Kim Day activated his communicator. How many total signatures? 137 species have joined the compact, sir. From major civilizations to single-world governments, the message is the same from all of them. They want Earth's protection against anyone who might try to establish another council-style empire. The Terran Compact was not a government or an empire. It was something simpler, more powerful, a mutual defense agreement backed by humanity's proven ability to eliminate existential threats. Any member species that chose freedom over subjugation would find Earth standing beside them. Any aggressor that chose genocide over coexistence would find Earth standing against them. Ambassador Choi Yuna arrived on the observation deck carrying the final documents for the Memorial Station dedication ceremony. She had spent the last year traveling across the galaxy, meeting with the leaders of every major species, explaining Earth's new role in galactic affairs. The dedication ceremony is ready to begin, she announced. Representatives from every compact member species are present, along with observers from the former council territories. The ceremony itself was simple but profound. Kim Day, as the senior Earth representative, spoke first to the assembled delegates and the billions watching. Across the galaxy, we gather here above the ruins of Kalari Prime to remember what was lost and to promise that such loss will never happen again. The species we honor today died because they chose friendship over fear, cooperation over domination, freedom over security. He gestured toward the Memorial Fleet, 47 ships hanging in formation around the station like a honor guard of the dead. These vessels carry the memory of 3 extinct civilizations. They are crewed by beings who believe that some knowledge is too valuable to lose and some friendships are too precious to forget. They serve not Earth, but the principle that genocide is the one crime that can never be forgiven or forgotten. Velterra, the last Kaleri merchant, spoke next. Her voice carried across the communication networks to every world in compact space. My people believed in the power of trade to bring species together in mutual prosperity. We died for that belief. But our memory lives on in every peaceful exchange, every fair deal, every moment when strangers choose trust over suspicion. Quinn Nash, the Morvani scientist, added her words to the memorial. My people believe that knowledge should be shared freely among all species. We died for that belief. But our research continues in every laboratory, every school, every moment when understanding defeats ignorance. Kethmore, the Dexian warrior, spoke last. His voice carried the weight of a warrior tradition that stretched back millennia. My people believe that strength should protect the weak, not exploit them. We died for that belief. But our honor lives on in every act of courage, every defense of the innocent, every moment when right defeats might. The ceremony concluded with the activation of Memorial Station's central beacon, a light that would shine across the galaxy, as a permanent reminder of the cost of unchecked power and the price of true justice. As the delegates dispersed and the ships began departing for their home systems, Kim Day remained on the observation deck with his core team. They had accomplished something unprecedented in galactic history. They had ended a war not with conquest, but with transformation. Dr. Park Hanna looked out at the Memorial Fleet beginning its patrol routes throughout compact space. Admiral, do you think we did the right thing? Kim Day considered the question while watching the reconstruction ships beginning their work on Kaleri Prime. Doctor, 1 year ago the galaxy was ruled by beings who believed that genocide was an acceptable tool for maintaining order. Today, every species in compact space knows that anyone who attempts genocide will face immediate and total retaliation. He turned from the viewport and looked at his team. We cannot bring back the dead, we cannot undo the suffering, but we can ensure that it never happens again. Ambassador Choi Yuna joined the conversation. The former council species are already adapting to the new reality. Their children are growing up in societies that value cooperation over domination. Their leaders understand that survival depends on earning respect, not demanding submission. Commander Oseok added his perspective. The Accountability Tribunal sent a clear message throughout the galaxy. Genocide has consequences. Mass murder has a price. Evil does not go unpunished if good people are willing to act. Engineer Yubin's voice came through the communication system one final time. Admiral, we are receiving requests from 17 additional species asking to join the Terran Compact. They have heard about our protection guarantees and want to ensure their freedom. Kim Day smiled for the first time in months. Grant their requests, Engineer. The Compact is open to any species that chooses freedom over tyranny. As Memorial Station completed its first orbit around the ruins of Kaleri Prime, Kim Day reflected on how much the galaxy had changed. The age of galactic empires was over. The age of protected freedom had begun. Humanity had learned the hardest lesson in the universe. Sometimes peaceful people must become warriors to preserve peace. Sometimes mercy requires overwhelming force. Sometimes the only way to protect the innocent is to eliminate those who would harm them. The galaxy would remember what happened when the Council chose genocide. It would remember that Earth had responded not with conquest, but with justice. And it would remember that some friendships are worth any price, including war. The fire had burned out, but its light would shine forever in the Memorial Station beacon and in the promise that humanity would never again allow evil to triumph over good. The war was over. The peace would be eternal.